They say love makes you do crazy things. I never believed it until the night I ran into that burning building without thinking twice. My name is Diana, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought mattered, only to discover what truly did. 3 years ago, I had it all. A successful career as a marketing executive, a face that turned heads wherever I went, and 2 people I trusted with my life. My fiancé, Ryan, and my best friend since childhood, Isabella. We were inseparable, the 3 of us. Ryan used to joke that he got a 2-for-1 deal when he proposed to me because Isabella came as part of the package. Isabella was stunning in that effortless way some women are blessed with. Golden hair that caught sunlight like spun silk, emerald eyes that sparkled when she laughed, and a figure that made heads turn on every street corner. But what I loved most about her wasn't her beauty, it was her fierce loyalty. When other girls in high school tried to tear me down out of jealousy, Isabella stood by me. When I doubted myself before important presentations at work, she was the one cheering me on from the sidelines. Ryan was different from the usual corporate types I dated. He worked as a volunteer firefighter alongside his day job as an architect. There was something magnetic about his dedication to saving others, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his calling. He had this rugged handsomeness that came from years of physical work, broad shoulders, calloused hands that could be gentle when they traced my cheek, and a smile that made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. We were planning our wedding for the following spring. Isabella was going to be my maid of honour naturally. We'd spent countless evenings at my apartment, poring over wedding magazines, debating flower arrangements and colour schemes. Ryan would often join us, bringing takeout, and listening patiently as we discussed the merits of ivory versus cream for my dress. "You 2 are going to drive me crazy with all this wedding talk," he'd tease. But his eyes were always soft when he looked at me, filled with a love I thought was unshakable. The night that changed everything started like any other Friday evening. The 3 of us had dinner at our favourite Italian restaurant downtown. Isabella had just gotten promoted to senior graphic designer at her firm, and we were celebrating. Ryan kept his arm around me throughout dinner, his thumb tracing circles on my shoulder in that absent-minded way he did when he was content. "I'm so happy for you, Izzy," I said, raising my wine glass. "You've worked so hard for this." Isabella's smile was radiant. "I couldn't have done it without your encouragement, Di. You've always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Ryan squeezed my shoulder. "That's my girl. Always lifting everyone up around her." After dinner, we decided to walk back to my apartment instead of taking Ryan's car. The evening air was crisp, perfect for October in our city. We strolled down the tree-lined street, Isabella linking her arm through mine while Ryan walked on my other side. Everything felt perfect, like a scene from a romantic movie. That's when we smelled the smoke. At first, it was just a faint, acrid scent carried on the wind. But as we turned the corner onto Maple Street, we saw the orange glow dancing against the night sky. The old Victorian house at the end of the block was engulfed in flames. Ryan immediately pulled out his phone to call 911, but we could already hear sirens in the distance. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk, neighbours in their pyjamas and robes watching in horror as the fire consumed the beautiful, century-old home. "The Hendersons live there," Isabella whispered, her face pale in the firelight. "Where are they? Does anyone see them?" Mrs. Chen from next door was crying. "Tom Henderson went back inside. He said their cat Whiskers was still trapped in the house. Martha's trying to stop him, but he wouldn't listen." My blood ran cold. Tom Henderson was 73 years old with a bad heart. If he was trapped in that inferno. Ryan was already moving, his firefighter instincts kicking in. "Diana, call the fire department again. Tell them there's someone inside." He started toward the house, but I caught his arm. "Ryan, no! The fire department will be here any minute. You don't have your equipment. It's too dangerous." He looked at me with those determined eyes I'd fallen in love with. "I can't just stand here and watch him die. I have to try." The front of the house was completely blocked by flames, but Ryan spotted a side window on the ground floor that wasn't yet consumed. Without proper gear, without backup, without anything but his bare hands and his courage, he smashed the glass and climbed inside. Isabella grabbed my hand so tightly it hurt. "He'll be okay, Diana. He knows what he's doing." Minutes felt like hours. The fire trucks arrived, and the professionals immediately began setting up their hoses and equipment. But I could see the doubt in the fire chief's eyes as he assessed the situation. The house was nearly gone. Then I saw something that made my heart stop. A beam had fallen across the side window Ryan had used to enter. The same window he would need to use to escape. Even if he found Tom Henderson alive, they were both trapped now. I didn't think. I didn't calculate the risks or consider the consequences. I just moved. The heat hit me like a physical wall as I ran toward the house. Behind me, I could hear Isabella screaming my name, could hear the fire chief shouting orders for someone to stop me. But all I could think about was Ryan trapped inside, probably unconscious from smoke inhalation by now, waiting for rescue that might not come in time. I found a loose board that had fallen from the side of the house and used it to clear the debris from the window. The flames were so close I could feel my hair beginning to singe. That's when I heard it, Ryan's voice, weak but alive, calling for help from somewhere inside. "I'm coming!" I shouted and climbed through the window into hell. The inside of the house was a maze of smoke and flame. I couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. My lungs burned with each breath, and my eyes streamed tears from the acrid air. But I pressed forward, following the sound of Ryan's voice. I found them in what had once been the living room. Tom Henderson was unconscious, and Ryan was dragging him toward what he thought was an exit. But the doorway he was heading for was blocked by a wall of flame. "Ryan!" I screamed over the roar of the fire. "This way! The window!" He turned toward me, relief flooding his soot-stained face. "Diana, what are you doing here? You need to get out." "Not without you." I grabbed Tom Henderson's other arm, and together we began pulling him toward the window. That's when I heard the crack above us. The ceiling beam came down in a shower of sparks and burning wood. Ryan saw it first and threw himself forward, pushing Tom Henderson clear of the falling debris. But there wasn't time to save himself. Without thinking, I lunged forward and shoved Ryan out of the path of the falling beam. The last thing I remember before the world went black was the searing pain as the burning wood crashed down on my face and Ryan's voice screaming my name. I woke up 6 days later to the steady beep of monitors and the antiseptic smell of hospital air. My entire face was wrapped in bandages, leaving only slits for my eyes and mouth. The morphine made everything hazy, but I could hear voices through the fog, Ryan and Isabella arguing in hushed tones near my bed. "She saved your life," Isabella was saying, her voice thick with tears. "She could have died, Ryan." "You think I don't know that?" His response was sharp, strained. "I never asked her to come after me. I told her to stay back. Don't you dare blame her for this." The arguing stopped when they noticed I was awake. Ryan's hand found mine immediately, his fingers trembling as they interlaced with mine. "Diana, thank God. We thought... His voice broke. I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper. Isabella held a straw to my lips, helping me sip water. "Tom?" I managed to whisper. "He's alive," Ryan said quickly. "Minor smoke inhalation, but he's going home tomorrow. Whiskers, too. The cat was hiding in a closet, completely unharmed." Dr. Martinez, a kind-faced woman with greying hair, entered before I could respond. She dismissed Ryan and Isabella gently, but firmly, for my first examination. What she told me changed everything. The burns covered 60% of my face. 3rd-degree damage along my left cheek and jaw, 2nd-degree across my forehead and around my right eye. The beam had been burning for hours before it fell, and the superheated wood had essentially melted through layers of skin and muscle. "We'll need at least 8 surgeries over the next 2 years," she explained, her voice professionally gentle. "I won't lie to you, Diana. Even with our best efforts, there will be significant scarring. Your face will never look the same." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I forced myself to ask, how significant? She showed me pictures of similar cases. My stomach turned. Deep, rope-like scars would run across my cheek. My left eye would have a permanent droop from damaged muscles. The smooth skin I'd taken for granted would be replaced by patchwork grafts and permanent discoloration. "We'll do everything we can," she promised, "but I believe in preparing patients for reality." That night, alone in my hospital room, I cried until no tears were left. Not just for my face, but for everything it represented. My confidence, my career, my future. How could I stand in front of clients when they couldn't look at me without flinching? How could I be the beautiful bride Ryan deserved? But when he visited the next morning, bringing my favourite coffee and a bouquet of white roses, his reaction gave me hope. "You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he said, kissing my unbandaged forehead. "A few scars could never change that." Isabella echoed his sentiment, though I caught her flinching slightly when the nurses changed my dressings. "Beauty comes from within, Di. You've always been radiant because of your heart, not your face." For the first month, they were both wonderfully supportive. Ryan visited every day, sometimes twice. He brought books to read aloud, downloaded my favourite shows on his tablet, and held my hand through every painful procedure. Isabella coordinated with our friends and family, screening visitors to protect my privacy and bringing updates from the outside world. My company granted extended medical leave with full pay. My insurance covered most of the treatments. Everything seemed manageable, wrapped in the cocoon of their love and support. The first surgery happened 3 weeks after the accident. When the bandages came off, revealing the initial reconstruction work, I saw truth in their eyes before they could hide it behind reassuring smiles. The horror was brief, but unmistakable. "It's just the beginning," Ryan said quickly. "Dr. Martinez said it would look much better after all the surgeries." But something had changed. His kisses became fewer, briefer. His visits grew shorter, filled with talk about work pressures and his volunteer firefighting duties. When I asked about wedding planning, he suggested we focus on my recovery first. Isabella filled the growing gaps in Ryan's attention. She brought magazines, did my nails, helped me practice makeup techniques that might minimize the scarring. But I noticed her Instagram posts changing. Fewer pictures of us together, more photos with other friends I barely knew. The second surgery came 2 months later. This time, when the bandages were removed, Ryan didn't try to hide his reaction. He looked at me for exactly 3 seconds before his gaze shifted to the floor. "How does it look?" I asked, though I already knew from his expression. "Better," he said, but the word came out flat, unconvincing. Dr. Martinez was more honest. "The scarring is more extensive than we initially thought. The muscle damage affected your facial symmetry more than anticipated." I spent that night staring at myself in the small mirror Isabella had brought me. The woman looking back was a stranger. My left eye drooped noticeably, giving me a perpetually sad expression. The scars across my cheek created deep valleys in what had once been smooth skin. The skin grafts from my thigh had taken on my face, but they were a different texture, slightly different colour. I was no longer beautiful. I wasn't even pretty. I was, by any conventional standard, disfigured. Ryan's visits became sporadic. When I called, he often didn't answer, texting back hours later with apologies about work emergencies or training exercises. When he did come, he sat farther from my bed, avoided looking directly at me, and seemed eager to leave. Isabella tried to compensate for his absence, spending long hours at the hospital. But I caught her taking selfies when she thought I wasn't looking, documenting her own flawless face as if to reassure herself it was still there. "Maybe you should talk to someone," she suggested one evening, "a therapist who specializes in trauma recovery." "Is that your way of saying I'm not handling this well?" "I just think professional help might be good for you, and maybe it would help you understand why Ryan is struggling too." Why Ryan was struggling, as if my disfigurement was somehow harder on him than it was on me. The third surgery was scheduled for December, just before what should have been our final wedding preparations. Ryan had stopped mentioning the wedding entirely, and when I brought it up, he grew quiet and distant. "Maybe we should postpone," he finally said one evening, standing by the hospital window instead of sitting beside my bed like he used to. "Give you time to fully recover? Postpone or cancel?" The words came out sharper than I intended. He turned then, and for a moment, I saw my Ryan again. The man who had risked his life to save a stranger, who had proposed under the stars on our first camping trip, who had once traced my face with such tenderness. But the moment passed. "I don't know, Diana. I don't know." That's when I realised I was losing him. The man I'd sacrificed everything to save was slipping away, repelled by the very scars I'd earned saving his life. The betrayal began with small lies that I was too trusting to catch. "Ryan can't make it tonight," Isabella would say during her evening visits. "Emergency training drill," or "he's covering an extra shift at the firm, big deadline." I believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative, that my fiancé was avoiding me, felt too devastating to accept. Isabella had become my lifeline during those dark hospital months, the one constant when everything else felt uncertain. She brought me books by female authors who'd overcome adversity, helped me practice walking again after weeks in bed, and listened patiently when I worried about returning to work. Her presence felt like proof that not everyone would abandon me because of my scars. What I didn't know was that Ryan had started confiding in Isabella about his struggles with my appearance. What began as him seeking comfort from our mutual friend had evolved into something far more dangerous. Late-night conversations that excluded me, shared glances I was too naive to recognise, a growing intimacy built on the foundation of my tragedy. The truth revealed itself on a cold January evening, 3 days before my fourth surgery. I'd been discharged for a brief recovery period at home, my first taste of freedom in 4 months. My apartment felt alien. All the mirrors I'd covered with sheets, photos of my old face scattered everywhere like ghosts. Isabella had offered to stay with me, help me adjust, but I'd insisted I needed to learn independence. That evening, she texted saying she was bringing dinner and Ryan might stop by later. I felt a surge of hope. Maybe some normalcy was returning to our relationship. I spent an hour getting ready, practicing the makeup techniques the hospital therapist had taught me to minimise the scarring. The result was still startling, but at least I looked more like a person recovering from trauma rather than a horror movie victim. Isabella arrived with Thai food from our favourite restaurant, but something felt off. She seemed nervous, checking her phone constantly, barely touching her pad thai. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Of course," she said too quickly. "Just work stress." An hour later, my doorbell rang. Isabella jumped like she'd been shocked. "That's probably Ryan," she said, but her voice sounded strange. I opened the door with genuine excitement. I hadn't seen him in over a week, but his expression when he saw me wasn't the warm greeting I'd hoped for. It was shock, followed quickly by something that looked like guilt. "Diana, I didn't expect you to look so..." He stopped himself, but the damage was done. "So what? Horrible? Frightening?" "That's not what I meant." But I saw the truth in his eyes. The woman he'd fallen in love with was gone, replaced by someone he could barely stand to look at. Isabella moved between us, her hand touching Ryan's arm in a gesture that seemed too familiar. "Ryan, you said you wanted to talk to Diana about something important." The way she said it, the way he looked at her instead of me, made something click into place. A pattern I'd been too blind to see. "How long?" I asked quietly. They both turned to me, confusion replacing guilt on their faces. "How long have you two been together?" The silence stretched like a chasm. Isabella's face went pale, and Ryan's jaw tightened in a way I recognized. It was how he looked when he was caught in a lie. "Diana, that's ridiculous," Isabella said, but her voice wavered. "Ryan and I are just friends. You're paranoid because of everything you've been through." "Then why does he look at you the way he used to look at me? Why do you touch him like you have the right to? Why haven't you two been in the same room together during any of your visits since December?" Ryan stepped forward, his hands raised like he was approaching a dangerous animal. "You're right, we need to talk. But not like this. Not when you're upset." "I'm upset because my fiancé and my best friend are lying to my face." My voice cracked, but I pushed on. "I may be scarred, but I'm not stupid. Tell me the truth." Isabella broke first. Tears started streaming down her perfect face as she sank onto my couch. "It wasn't supposed to happen. We were both so worried about you, spending so much time together, and we were both struggling with seeing you like this." "So you bonded over how repulsive I'd become?" "No, it wasn't like that. We were supporting each other through a difficult time, and feelings just developed." Ryan moved closer to Isabella, and I saw it clearly then. The way his hand naturally found her shoulder, the way she leaned into his touch. They'd been together for months, growing closer while I lay in a hospital bed recovering from saving his life. "When did it start?" I demanded. Ryan finally found his voice. "After your second surgery. We were both devastated seeing you like that, and we found comfort in each other. But Diana, we never meant for it to become..." "When did you first kiss her?" The question hung in the air. Isabella was openly sobbing now, but I felt nothing but cold fury. 3 weeks ago," Ryan whispered. 3 weeks. While I was planning our postponed wedding, while I was learning to accept my new face, while I was grateful for their friendship and support, they were building a relationship behind my back. "Get out." My voice was steady now, ice cold. "Diana, please, we can work through this," Isabella pleaded. "You're my best friend. I never wanted to hurt you." "You are hurting me. Every day you've lied to me. Every time you've touched him in front of me. Every time you've made me feel grateful for your loyalty while you were stealing my life." Ryan stepped forward. "I still care about you, Diana. I'll always be grateful for what you did for me. But I can't marry someone when I'm in love with someone else." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. I'd sacrificed my face, my beauty, my future for him, and he was treating our relationship like a business transaction that had run its course. "Someone else?" I laughed, but it sounded broken even to me. "You mean my best friend? The woman who held my hand through every surgery while secretly planning to steal my fiancé?" "It's not stealing if you're not compatible anymore," Isabella said softly. "Not compatible because I'm no longer beautiful enough for him?" "Because you've changed," Ryan said. "The trauma, the surgeries, the anger. You're not the same person I fell in love with." The audacity was breathtaking. I'd changed because I'd been burned saving his life, and now he was using that change to justify abandoning me for my best friend. "You're right," I said, moving toward the door. "I have changed. The old Diana was naive enough to think loyalty and love meant something. The old Diana would have sacrificed anything for people she cared about. But you've taught me a valuable lesson about what people are really worth." I opened the door and stood beside it. "Get out, both of you, and don't ever come back." "Diana," Isabella started. "Get out!" They left together, Ryan's arm around Isabella's shoulders as she cried. I watched through my window as he helped her into his car. The same car where I'd sat in the passenger seat just months earlier, planning our wedding and our future. That night, alone in my apartment, I looked at myself in the mirror for the first time without flinching. Yes, I was scarred. Yes, I was changed. But I was alive, and I was stronger than I'd ever been. They thought they'd won by choosing each other. They had no idea what they'd unleashed. Revenge, I discovered, was a dish best served with patience and precision. The first thing I did was cancel my 4th surgery. Dr. Martinez was concerned, but I'd made my decision. I would work with the face I had, not chase after the face I'd lost. The scars would stay, but they would become my strength, not my shame. The second thing I did was hire a private investigator. James Morrison came highly recommended by my lawyer, a former police detective with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. He listened without judgment as I explained what I needed to know about Ryan and Isabella's relationship. Timeline, evidence, financial records, I told him. Everything. Within 2 weeks, Morrison delivered a file that made my blood run cold. Ryan and Isabella hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been planning their future together while I was still unconscious in the hospital. Bank records showed Ryan had been apartment hunting with Isabella just 1 week after my 2nd surgery. He'd even put down a deposit on a luxury condo downtown, the kind of place we'd dreamed of living together. More damaging were the text messages Morrison had recovered from Isabella's cloud backup. Messages she'd foolishly never deleted. "She's going to be so dependent on us now," Isabella had written to Ryan 3 months earlier. "We can't abandon her yet, but after the surgeries are done." Ryan's response was worse. "I know we have to wait, but God, it's hard pretending everything's normal. When I look at her now, all I see are the scars." "At least she's grateful," Isabella had replied. "She has no idea how much we sacrificed to visit her." They'd been counting down the days until they could discard me guilt-free, playing the role of devoted fiancé and loyal best friend while planning their escape from my tragedy. But Morrison's most valuable discovery was something they hadn't planned on. Ryan's volunteer firefighter status was built on a lie. He'd been suspended from the fire department 6 months before the Henderson House fire for showing up intoxicated to a call. He was never supposed to enter that burning building, and his reckless decision to go in without proper authorization had put multiple lives at risk, including mine. The department had covered it up to avoid a lawsuit, but Morrison found the internal disciplinary records. Ryan wasn't a hero. He was a liability who'd nearly gotten us all killed with his poor judgment. Armed with this information, I began phase 2 of my plan. I returned to work gradually, starting with remote projects while my confidence rebuilt. My company had been surprisingly supportive. My boss, Patricia, was a tough woman who valued results over appearances. She assigned me to behind-the-scenes strategy work initially, but when clients met me and saw my competence hadn't diminished, I was back to full responsibilities within months. The scars actually became an asset in some meetings. Clients remembered me, respected my resilience, and trusted my judgment in ways they never had before. My revenue numbers climbed steadily. Meanwhile, I started documenting every interaction with Ryan and Isabella. When they tried to contact me, tentative texts, voicemails asking for forgiveness, attempts to talk things through, I saved everything. Their messages revealed a pattern of manipulation and self-interest that would prove useful later. 6 months after our confrontation, Isabella called me crying. Ryan had been distant, she said. He was having second thoughts about their relationship and wondered if he'd made a mistake leaving me. "I think he still loves you," she sobbed into the phone. "I'm so scared I'm going to lose him." "Good," I said calmly. "You should be." The real satisfaction came 8 months later when Morrison called with news that changed everything. "Your ex-fiancé is in serious trouble," he said. "Remember that disciplinary record I found? The fire department just launched a formal investigation into the Henderson fire. Someone tipped them off about Ryan's unauthorized entry and his condition that night. I hadn't made that call, but I certainly hadn't discouraged the investigation when a Henderson family lawyer contacted me asking questions about that night. There's more, Morrison continued. Isabella's been skimming money from her company's client accounts. Small amounts spread over several accounts. She probably thought no one would notice, but her new lifestyle with Ryan caught her boss's attention. Luxury condo, expensive clothes, frequent vacations on a graphic designer's salary. Isabella's greed had finally caught up with her. She'd been funding their dream life with stolen money, thinking she was too smart to get caught. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Ryan lost his volunteer position permanently when the fire department concluded he'd endangered civilian lives through reckless behaviour. The story hit local news, painting him as a glory-seeking fake hero rather than the saviour everyone believed him to be. His architecture firm, concerned about liability issues, quietly let him go. Isabella was arrested for embezzlement 2 weeks later. The amount she'd stolen was just enough to qualify as a felony, $50,000 over 18 months. Her perfect face looked haggard in her mugshot, stress and guilt finally showing in the lines around her eyes. Their luxury condo was repossessed when they couldn't make the payments without Isabella's income and Ryan's job. They moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town, their relationship cracking under the pressure of their collapsed lives. But the sweetest justice came when Tom Henderson's family sued Ryan for reckless endangerment. My testimony was crucial. The woman who'd been scarred saving the man who'd recklessly put everyone in danger. The jury awarded damages that would haunt Ryan financially for decades. Isabella, facing prison time, tried one last desperate move. She called me from jail, begging me to provide a character reference for her sentencing hearing. "Please, Diana," she cried. "We were best friends for 20 years. That has to count for something. I made mistakes, but I never stopped caring about you." I met her at the courthouse on the day of her hearing, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that highlighted my confidence rather than hiding my scars. "You want to know what our 20-year friendship counts for?" I asked her. "It makes your betrayal 20 times worse. You didn't just steal my fiancé, you chose to torture me with your fake sympathy while planning your future with him. You sat by my hospital bed, holding my hand while texting him about how grateful I was for your sacrifice." She stared at me in shock. "How did you—" "I know everything, Isabella. Every text, every lie, every moment you pretended to be my friend while you were really my enemy." She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Ryan, bankrupt and unemployed, moved back in with his parents at 32 years old. Today, I run my own marketing consultancy. My client list includes several major corporations who sought me out specifically because of my reputation for resilience and strategic thinking. The scars on my face tell a story of courage that opens doors my old beauty never could. I'm engaged to a wonderful man named Alexander, a trauma surgeon who sees my scars as proof of my strength, not evidence of my damage. He loves me for who I became, not who I used to be. Sometimes I wonder if Ryan and Isabella think about the night I saved his life, if they realize that their betrayal gave me something more valuable than anything they took away, the knowledge of my own unbreakable strength. They thought my disfigurement made me weak, made me less than I was before. Instead, it revealed exactly how powerful I could become when I stopped caring about other people's opinions and started focusing on my own worth. I sacrificed my face to save him, and he betrayed me with my beautiful best friend. But in the end, their betrayal saved me from a life with people who would have abandoned me the moment I needed them most. Now, they're both exactly where they deserve to be, forgotten, discredited, and facing the consequences of their choices. And me? I'm exactly where I always should have been. Successful, loved, and finally free.